speaking of all meat to meat and all the things that are happening, one of the things that we kind of delayed talking about it, but we're going to talk about it right now, is Pearadise.
5, 4, 3 all the way. Then we got 2. One finger salute. We have Caffeine Controversy, the podcast.
Yeah, that was on HBO.
Was it HBO or ID?
It was like ID.
ID owns
which
HBO.
Is, yeah.
Oh, HBO owns ID. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thoughts?
I don't necessarily like that they gave him a voice on it. I understand
let's
why.
talk about who's him.
Okay.
So Stefan.
Yeah. German guy, moved to the U.S., a genius in the tech world, kind of, to say. That's where he made his money. Has always liked bigger women, was shamed for it by his family. So he moved to Vegas where it's more acceptable, he says. And has a house that he calls Pearadise, but like pear as in like the fruit.
Yeah.
And it's basically like a large house with a pool that he takes in plus size women, and
they're not homeless, so he's
I mean, well, some of them
actually, you're right. Yeah.
Some of them are close to being homeless, and he gets them to the point where they're there. He's funding their lifestyle, so they become dependent on him because it's hard, unfortunately, to get a job as a plus size woman.
Yeah, sure.
And then if you have a gap in your resume and you are now larger than the last time you tried to get a job, and you now have more restrictions because you are larger, you're dependent on this man.
I'm not even gonna lie to you,
and that's what he wants.
Yeah. So let's do a little bit more of a backstory. So one, Stefan does have this house that's in Las Vegas, and he does have, it's like a big girl safe haven in a way, because like these girls,
it's a plus size Playboy mansion.
Yeah. So they come in and they do content, they do all this other stuff, and obviously he says certain things like sex is not required, but let's be real here, sex wasn't required with Hugh Hefner, right? So required. But it was a lot of different things of abuse and horribleness, and people getting taken advantage of, people passing away.
Yeah.
And
encouraging women to gain.
Yes. So encouraging women to gain weight. But it was one of those things where I will say this, like, yeah, I understand, like, you could be frustrated that he had a voice. This is where I will say, to understand where the devil is coming from, you have to first listen to him.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have to agree with him, but you have to at least listen. And this is where it comes also into. Every single person that was there was legally, by age, an adult.
Yes.
Mentally, in terms of maturity of life, different story. Because there was the accusation of him talking to underage girls.
Yeah, he would start talking to them underage, and then once they hit a legal age, then they were invited to the house.
Yeah, so there was the
worst grooming.
Worst kind of influencing. Yeah, grooming. So that was one thing. And then there was also because of encouraging women to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and people wound up passing away that were affiliated with his house. One in the house, right?
She got sick in the house and then went to
the hospital and passed away at the hospital.
Yeah.
So that led into like an issue that you touched on, where it's so huge and crucial, no pun intended, is the fact that with people being heavier, and this is where discrimination laws do apply for certain things, right? Where it comes into people not getting opportunity based on their culture, where they come from, language barriers, race, sex, sexual origin, identifying markers, all those things, right? The reason, one of those things, as most people will not talk about, is size discrimination.
Yeah.
And the reason that there is a size discrimination, and people don't want to say there is I can honestly tell you, as somebody who has a degree in human resource and studies on this, no one should be ever, as working for a company, you never deny anybody based on what they look like, what they sound like, what they may have in terms of weight. You can only deny on the aptitude and engagement for the current position that you're hiring for. Mm-hmm. It has to be as strict and as stringent with those things. However, in certain cases and in certain legal cases, people have been denied jobs based on their size.
We're presumed as lazy.
There's the presumption of laziness, which I can tell you a lot of big people will actually work harder to prove that they're not lazy.
Yeah.
I can honestly tell you that most people that are overweight get denied for jobs for one simple reason: longevity. Longevity. Why am I going to hire somebody that could be dead in a week? It's the same thing of why people who are senior in age get denied positions, and it's called ageism.
Yeah.
Like they could look like they're at death's doorstep. If they apply for a job and they have the engagement and aptitude for the job, you cannot deny them.
Right.
So those two things are the correlation. So, and that's where you have to think about it as. If somebody is old, they should not be denied a job because of their age, because they could drop dead in a week, right? If someone's overweight, they could be very much so in the same position. They could drop dead in a week.
But I mean, in that same aspect, the person that's super thin and fit could be taking a substance that's going to drop them dead in a week.
100%.
Like, that's why you can't just assume shit.
This is true. That's why there's laws and regulations based around discrimination. That's
Right.
why we're...
But people still...
But this is the thing. That's why with, like, DEI and things like that, in terms of, like, you know, everyone thinks it about affirmative action. The number one DEI hires women. And plus-size women.
Yeah.
So you think about that. It's one of those, like, holy shit moments where we just increased certain things for people to not get jobs. And that's the fact of it. It's not even for a plus size movement or a body inclusive movement. It's literally based, and a lot of people, unfortunately, will get denied jobs because of their size, based primarily around the longevity on when they have the position.
Yeah.
I as someone who works in the field of human resource, I have hired all types of people. They/them, he/him, she/her, transgender, like all those types.
Special needs,
whether it be one disability, job coach, things like that. Black, white, Asian, short, tall, old, my hiring range, I literally in the past year has been from 16 to 74. And the weight range has been from rail thin to big, right? Because if you're ultra thin, that doesn't mean you're healthy. If it's ultra big, it doesn't mean you're healthy either.
Yeah.
You could be, granted, if you do the eye test, if you see ribs on somebody, you're not healthy. If you see nothing but back fat on somebody, you might not be healthy, right? I'm no doctor, but because of that, that doesn't give me the right to judge you.
Right.
If you can do the job and you have the aptitude to do the job, then I can hire you for the job. The problem is those discriminatory markers exist.
Yeah.
So when you talk about Pearadise, all you're basically doing is taking those discriminatory markers and putting them as the circus freak show for views. And that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's smart because literally, like we were talking about with Flavor of Love, with old girl with the big ass, that chick's now, you can not, I don't know if she is or not, but that type of build of a woman is now an OnlyFans girl.
Yeah.
Right? I could pay to see your cooter for the change in my pocket. So now that same thing, flipping and reverse it with them. If I have the issue where I love to make sure that my person is full and growing and eating, I can now pay money to do that. And I can now pay money to watch it. And it's a monopoly that no one, you cannot like it, but look, the God's on the dollar, but the devil's the one who's making it. So you never know what the hell people are going to want to do. And this is what they do. And like you said, if it's harder for them to get jobs, then how are they going to literally survive? They're going to survive doing the only thing that they know how to do.
That's what bothers me with it, because we're set up to fail.
In a way.
We're set up to push our own mental health aside and our physical health to a degree to accept the only attention that we're getting. We are led to believe that the attention is positive when it's not really positive. It's manipulative.
I'm going to push back on this a little bit and continue.
As somebody that was in this world, not in the sense of I never did the like
other stuff,
eating stuff, because I don't like food.
Mm-hmm.
But I, had 72-inch hips when I started my Instagram and showed the pear shape. I didn't hide it. I was in the body positive movement to a degree when it was early, like 2018-ish, when I started my Instagram and whatnot. Like, I was...
When positivity was literally for being accepted and not using it to claim equality when you want in equal terms and agreements.
Yeah, before it turned...
Yeah, believe me, I know. Because as somebody who's in the as somebody who grew up in a pro-black house, and you know what real racism is, and you see people who are, and I know I'm trying really hard not to say names.
I grew up being told if I stayed as fat as I was, I wouldn't find somebody to love me.
Yeah.
And that was at 16, where I was nowhere near my heaviest. Mm-hmm. So every time I got remotely bigger, mm-hmm. it was another like step back from feeling like I would find my person. And
due to the generational trauma from your parent, from your dad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was a teen in the 90s where skinny culture was huge.
Yeah.
And that the plus size chick in the show and movie was barely plus size, but like it always started as once she got a makeover, she was suddenly hot, or they dated her on a dare and then found out like, oh, she's a good fucking person.
That's what the whole movie premise is about.
Yeah. So when you grow up with being told by a parent who's supposed to love you no matter what, yep. and be your like hype person, that if you stay this fat, no one will love you, to then see the media, it wasn't even social media at the time, it was just media, mm-hmm. telling you need to be smaller than what you currently are. Mm-hmm. And then the guys that you had crushes on, like in your class or in the schools or whatnot, it was, well, you have really pretty hair and like a pretty face if you just lost the weight.
I mean, my friend, she has an Instagram that and shout out to her IG is like fat girl with a pretty face. Yeah. That's her Instagram title.
Yeah. So like I grew up with that, and then I started doing my photography stuff and traveling with a comedian, and I felt accepted for my talent and my humor for the first time. Mm-hmm. And then from like a few years later and stuff, I started my Instagram, and it was a roller coaster because it went from who you are is never going to be lovable to
Don't change.
don't you dare change, like, unless you get bigger. And then that was weird because it was suddenly like, what? And then I finally started getting answers for my health with the lipedema and started being able to have surgeries. And then it was the hill drop of the roller coaster of you're getting rid of the best parts of you by getting rid of the hips and the ass and this. And I'm like, the best part of me, like, that's what made me sick. That's what made me immobile. That's what, like, took years off of my life. Like, but now that's all I have to offer you is the hips and saddlebags. Got it. So, like, for the first 30 some years, like, it was never about who I was. It was how I looked. I was either too much or suddenly wasn't enough. And then at the same time, I was still too fat for the general public.
Yeah.
I was too small for the plus size guys, but I was too big for the, like, regular group of people, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so that was, like, a weird, like...
I think, and this is where I'm going to push back on, where generational trauma aside, because, look, there are certain things that are passed down generationally that we as people who try to break the curses, because, look, I come from a family where all we did was, everything was centered around food. Whether we're happy, sad, glad, whatever, everything was centered around food. And that's what led to me to be 460 pounds. That's also what led me to have a heart attack at the age of 33. At the end of the day, when I look at it with the women in Pearadise, Stefan, mm-hmm. your life, my life,
yeah,
there's one thing that's in common. Choices. 100% choices. Your parent, your dad, had a choice to pass something down or not. He chose to pass it down.
Yeah.
The sad part that is when it comes to generational trauma is we have to decide early in life, do we choose to listen to it or do we choose to break it? For the first 30 years, you listened to it. Mm-hmm. And then once you started breaking it, people who had similar generational traumas that were outcasted them for what they like. Why do you mean you like the big girl? You supposed to like this. Oh, you look like this. Why you with that? Because that's a generational trauma too of like, why you with this girl? You should be with this one.
I mean, we get that.
Yeah. And it's like, those are things where it's like, again, it's all comes down to choices. You made a choice because you had lipedema, lymphedema, right? And that's because of the fact of, like, medical systems failing and this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, you made a choice to have the surgeries. Mm-hmm. You made a choice to get on a GLP-1 after the surgeries. You made a choice to do all the dietary changes that you needed to do.
Yeah.
You can't make up for the time of what wasn't. You can only move forward with what is and what will be.
Yeah.
And you made choices to set up your future for a better future. The issue that happens where you look at Pearadise is you see, as someone who is now in a smaller body, but is still in a bigger body, you went from a size what in jeans to what?
26, 28 to like a 14, 16, so sometimes 18, depending on the brand.
You see those girls mm-hmm. who are the age ranges of 18 all the way up to 32. You see them as you. Mm-hmm. And you want to save them from the choices that they're making that are not saying you made any choices that were just as bad as, like, I'm going to go to Vegas and, like, be on the Instawebs and showing my hooch and be outside and my butt cheeks all out. It's not that, but it's like you see a disenfranchised group being taken advantage of, mm-hmm. being led astray and led to death like cattle. Not a fat joke, but led astray, like, and down that road. Like the medical system led you down that road. Like your dad led you down that road. Like how society tried to push you down that road.
I mean, and X tried to as well.
Mm-hmm. And so you have those things where it's like, I wish I could save these girls. But their life is defined by their choices. You just have to be that example. Be like, oh, go follow PGP. She lived a life very similar to yours and got out of it. Or she actually changed her health for the good. And actually, I showed a girl that, had a kid in there and actually lost weight, lost a decent amount of weight, and is doing better in life.
Yeah.
So you have those moments where, and this is where I see you struggle more than anything else, is you reach out and try to help them, physically try to help people. All you can do is be there. All you can do is be there. Hey, I'm the girl that's had 72-inch hips. My hips are now under 50 inches, and I lost over 120 pounds or 115 pounds, whatever it is, right? Everybody's like, oh, you're such an inspiration. I just live my life. Yes, I'm the kid that survived childhood essay twice. Yes, I'm the kid that was bullied in high school. Yes, I was the adult man who had a heart attack the day after his birthday. Yes, I am the person that lost 260 pounds and maintained that, and now maintain 230 pounds weight loss. I'm all those people. I reach out to no one. Right. I let them come to me. Because if they truly want help, they ask for it. It's like rehab, dude. You can't help somebody. You can't be that person for somebody until they walk through that door, full heart in their hands, wanting help.
Right.
And that's what these people are. They're stuck in a vicious cycle set up by their own choices and society's framing it. But at the end of the day, it's their choices.
Yeah, it's just, I think the situation with how he has Pearadise set up, it's very much like a cult. It's
yes and no.
It's this, he's got them sheltered from the real world as much as possible. Like, he isolates them from fans and family. He gets them this safe, or this false sense of community with the other women. And that was mentioned a lot in the documentary. The women were like, I was there for the women. I stayed for the other women. And we tolerated him. We put up with, like, the stuff from him in a way. It was a reoccurring theme. But the mental manipulation, the isolation from friends, family, workability, like, everything was made to make them dependent on him. It's very much like all of the, like, polygamy Mormon stuff that we watched, where they were isolated and, like, brainwashed to believe that, like, this one guy was the prophet. What he said was golden. And it's that type of, like, you just need to see, like,
I think what we're seeing, I think what we're seeing more than anything else, where I don't believe it's a cult, because at the end of the day, like, I feel it's more of a Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I feel like a cult is somebody who you prey on the weak-minded. I don't think these women are weak-minded. I just think they're women that are starved for acceptance. I really do. I really think they're starved for acceptance more than weak-minded. And I think it's a moment in that him being smart enough to see, like, oh, this is your generational trauma button. I'm going to press it.
Yeah.
And versus, you need to follow me because this is the way. Like, this is not Mandalorian. But, like, that's what I see more than anything else with that. So, with all of that and all of those things, like, Stefan is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Those women deserve better and should do better and should choose better. You know, again, it's only a mistake if you don't learn from it. I really hope that those women learn from their mistakes, and I hope the women that are there in that house at some point wake up and realize that life is short and they don't have nearly as much time as they think and hope that they do. And that's not a size thing. That's just a life thing.
Yeah.
You could be here today and gone tomorrow. And every single one of them, like, has been outcasted, has been ostracized, and has been exploited for financial gain. Because who the hell knows? You know, it would be a telling sign if all those people and all those women that are in that house, they open up their financial books and see where the money that they're actually getting from all these TikToks and all this stuff and all this branding is going to. Because they said what they said, but we don't have paperwork to verify it. And you can tell me everything you want me to believe under the sun. I trust what my eyes will show me. And you don't, if you're not showing me something, I don't believe you.
Yeah, plus if he has it set up where like the Pearadise account is the main person and they collab with, he's profiting.
Exactly.
And he could be telling them, oh, it only made X amount when really it made 3 times that.
Yeah, exactly.
And because it's a fetish and a porn category, it's going to profit.
Exactly. So when in doubt, guys, if you know better, do better. And if you're a big girl, get that money. Stay true. And it's from me to you. Bars. Don't be behind them. This has been another episode of Caffeine and Controversy. Please follow us on all socials. We'll be back next week with a new episode talking about all the messy, all the stuffs, all the dramas. Anything you'd like to add, Miss PGP?
Nah, I'm good.
She's good, guys. She's only bad for me.
Oh my God.
Follow us, guys.
Make sure you follow us on all platforms, you misfits. And just remember, caffeine is first. The filter is never.